Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fabulously Fun Trips. I'm your host, Greta Smith, owner of Savvy Travel Design, where I plan fabulously fun trips for my clients to share with their favorite people. Here on the show each week, I introduce you to my reps from my favorite travel companies so you can learn what's hot and new and so you can ask any questions you may have. This week, I am very excited to introduce you to Ted Knight from Princess Cruise Lines. Ted, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So we are going to talk Alaska 2022 this evening, correct?
Correct. That's it.
Yay, awesome. I do have a quick question for you, and if you can't comment on it, it's okay. But we got, we all got a little bit of bad news last week when Canada said, hey, we're going to keep our borders closed to the big ships for this year. So
Right.
you have you heard any rumblings? And like I said, if you can't comment on it, it's okay. But have you heard any rumblings about, obviously we can't sail yet, but when we can, are they looking for workarounds, or are we just kind of doing a see approach?
It was interesting the way that Canada wrote the law was to stay out of Canadian waters. If we had still been able to sail through Canadian waters, we could have continued with the season because the Passenger Service Act says we have to go into foreign waters. So the way that they wrote it makes it interesting for us. So yes, they are trying to do workarounds. They're trying to get variances for the Pacific Northwest. There's a lot going on right now in headquarters. Also, for cruise side and also on the land side, we're opening up more on the tour side so that people can enjoy the lodges, which is something we're always asked about, but we never had the space because they're always full. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. We'll know more in about a week on the variances, if we can get them, what the government's going to allow us, the industry, to do. So we'll know more in about a week.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that little bit of inside information there on that. So Ted has brought some really fun visuals tonight, some really cool pictures and everything to show us and kind of talk us through what's on the books for 2022. So I do want to let you guys know that are watching, we are having a little bit of a technical issue. So I'm going to be running the slides for him. So we're just so that you kind of know, I'm going to pull myself out and you guys aren't going to be able to hear me, but you will be able to hear Ted, and he's going to let me know when he needs the next thing. So Ted, I'm going to go ahead and flip that around so we can see all of your fun pictures and everything. And then you just need to give me a second to get it into the right mode. Okay.
Just let me know. No problem.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so give me like 2 seconds because I can't talk to you once I zip out.
I understand.
Okay. All right. So give me like 10 seconds and then go.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. Tonight, we're going to kind of introduce you to one of the most amazing places in the earth today. I live in Florida, and I have had the fortunate opportunity to go to Alaska. Last summer was my 59th trip up to Alaska. It is an incredible place, and somewhere over the next few minutes, I hope to kind of introduce you a little bit to my favorite place in the world. We're going to talk about seasonality. We're going to talk about animals. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to try and all do this in about 20, 25 minutes. So as we work down through here, you're going to see the next slide is we love Alaska. We do. We've been there a long time. And the next slide after that is one of my friends up there. Last thing that you really want to do is run into a moose while you're running around the outback areas of Alaska. First and foremost, the health and safety of everyone involved is very important to us. And as we all know, there's a lot going on with COVID. I'm constantly asked what's going to be required to cruise, and that's just a very difficult answer, a very difficult question to answer right now. Back in January, the government was thinking about allowing people to cruise if they tested negative for COVID. Now, with shots being available in some parts of the country, and perhaps in 6 months, would they require the shot in order to take a cruise? We just don't know. That will be above our ability to answer. That's going to be something that the CDC is going to require. And they're struggling with it because some religions don't allow shots. Some countries don't allow shots. So it's a constant battle within the government itself on what they're going to require in order for us to operate safely. But no, please know that our first and foremost is going to be the safety and welfare of both you and our own employees that are on the ship. One advantage that Princess has is we have a program called the Medallion Program. And the medallion is very, very easy. And in fact, if you will bear with me just a second, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't. So a medallion is roughly the size of a quarter. And you can get it either hang around your neck, you can get a watch band, you can get a pen, you can stick it in your pocket. All of our ships that go to Alaska in 2022 will have the medallion service. And I want to explain that a little bit to you so that you understand the freedom that you're going to have on your cruise. The next slide is going to show you a little bit about some of the things that you can do with the medallion, and it really is amazing. When you arrive at the pier, there's no longer the check-in lines. Basically, you're going to walk through, there's a facial recognition, and this is still ongoing with CDC and also the local governments on what they will and they won't allow. But basically, it's a seamless transition from the pier to the ship. As you get to your stateroom on the ship, now that person with the coffee is a perfect example of me, because when my wife and I cruise, you know who's carrying all the bags and everything. You walk up, you stand in front of the door unlocks automatically, you just push down and you go inside. Don't have to touch it, all right? What's also great about the medallion is the freedom it gives you on a cruise. You can be anywhere on the ship in the privacy of your own room, in a public area by the pool, sauna, whatever, and have meals and drinks delivered to you in a seamless, transparent way. And that's what makes the medallion program so great, is you're not going to have the lines. You're not going to have to worry about, am I going to stand in the line? Am I going to have to social distance, whatever? The medallion will give you the opportunity to relax, enjoy the benefits of Alaska from either the privacy of your own balcony or in a public area while you're listening to talks, lectures, and discussions. So we feel the medallion is really going to make a difference in cruising in Alaska, because it's going to give you the freedom to do what you want, when you want, and basically at your own space. All right. So when we look at Alaska, we find some interesting things, and it's important to understand some of the trivia about Alaska. If you put Alaska in the continental United States, it would go from Charleston, South Carolina, to Minneapolis, St. Paul, to Long Beach, California. That is the size of the state of Alaska. And yet less than 600,000 live in the whole state. So compare where you live, all right, and see how that would compare. Here in Central Florida, basically more people live in one county than the entire state of Alaska. It's a land of 10,000 rivers and over 3 million lakes. It is a vast amount of land, and that's why it's so important to understand Alaska so that you can plan your perfect Alaska vacation. Another question I'm asked frequently is, when's the best time to go to Alaska? And for that, you really need to ask yourself, what would you like to see? Because Alaska has 3 different seasons in the summertime, and they are dynamically different from each other. Springtime in Alaska is mid-May to mid-June. You have snow-capped mountains, flowers are blooming, trees are blossoming, animals are moving. It's a beautiful time to be in Alaska. It's the driest time of the year. See the little no umbrellas there? So it's your best opportunity to see the mountain. What you don't have yet in springtime, the salmon have not come to the rivers. Since the salmon haven't come inshore yet, the predators haven't come down to the river. Very simple in Alaska. To find the predators, you find the food. Find the food and you'll find the wildlife. So in May and early to mid-June, the salmon are collecting out in the harbors. So there's a lot of fishing going on out there, but bears and eagles, can't really get them while they're out there. But late June, early July, as the salmon start running into the rivers, everything congregates to the rivers. So that's where your bears, your eagles, all your predators are going to go, will be at the mouth and first part of the rivers. Find the food and you'll find the wildlife. So springtime is the driest time of year. Great time to see the mountain. Food's basically still out in the ocean. Peak seasons from like the third week of June to the third week of August. That's the most expensive time to be in Alaska. But Alaska changes dramatically come summertime. It's going to rain. It's going to rain a lot. In fact, in Ketchikan, we measure rain in feet instead of inches. But a funny thing happens in Alaska when the food comes in late June and July. From late June, July to about the end of August, 100 million salmon will come home to Alaska. Think about that number. 100 million salmon will come home. So as all these fish congregate into the areas, you know where the wildlife's going to be. So best time to see wildlife is basically summertime. Late June to late August is a great time to see wildlife, right? Now, whales are going to be there. Whales come in April, leave in October, November. So don't worry about whales. In fact, we'll talk about where to find whales in just a second. So it just depends on the month that you're there. The last season in the summertime is late August to mid-September. You still have the end of the salmon season. Most of your kids have gone home. Alaska settles down. I like late August. Prices go down a little bit. Weather stabilizes. It doesn't rain much. But the salmon are still at the very end of the run typically, which means all the predators are right there for you to see. So those are your three seasons. Spring, mid-May, mid-June, dry, great chance to see the rock. Peak season, mid-June to mid-August. Lots of wildlife, probably going to rain. Which if it rains and when you're inland, the chances of seeing the mountain are very slim. And then fall, weather stabilizes a little bit, kids go home, prices drop, last of the salmon season. It's kind of a good time to be up there, late August, early September. So those are your seasons in Alaska. And it's just important to understand. So it all depends on what you would like to experience on your trip to Alaska. Now, who is Princess? We're the #1 cruise line in Alaska. You know, more guests choose Princess than any other cruise line. We have multiple types of cruise, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. This picture was taken springtime. This picture was actually taken late May, just to kind of give you an idea. And the reason I know that is because there's snow on those mountains. In July, those mountains would be completely barren, just to kind of give you an idea. So Travel Weekly, 16 times, recommended #1 brand by travel advisors for 19 straight years. We understand Alaska. We've been in Alaska for a long time. More than 50 years sailing the Great Land. We have top-rated cruises and cruise tours. And with our medallion service, we kind of feel that this kind of separates us from the others so that you can relax, do what you want, when you want. We're going to talk about cruising. We're going to talk about tours. We're going to talk about a bunch of things here and try to get through this a little bit, in about 15, 20 minutes. One of the things we're very proud of is our award-winning programs that we offer on the ship. We partnered with the Discovery Channel about 5 or 6 years ago to provide in-depth presentations, talks, lectures, discussions. Every day that you're in Alaska, we want you to sit back, relax, engage, or listen. We want to entertain you. God forbid, we want to educate you. We want you to understand the magic of Alaska. Even our shore excursions have been customized with the Discovery Channel on several locations so that you can get the maximum amount of experience in the minimum amount of time. And they're great for all ages. One of them, it's funny, we do a lot of things up there. We really do. But one of the most popular things that we do is in either Juneau or Ketchikan, depending, is we bring the puppies on the ship. So it's called Puppies in the Piazza. Now, it's crowded. It's a lot of people come down to see and play with the puppies. The funny thing is, you think that there'd be a lot of kids down there playing with the puppies. It's all us. We're down there playing with the puppies while they're in the piazza. It's a unique experience that we offer in Alaska. Our North to Alaska program is part of the programs where we have the talks, the lectures, discussions. That's Libby Riddle. She's a 2-time winner of the itineraries. She comes on board the ship. She does talk, lecture, and discussion. When we're in Glacier Bay, the National Park Rangers come on, they do the talk lectures and discussions. There's so much to learn, so much to experience, and we want to bring it all to you while you're in Alaska. So with Alaska, we have multiple ways. We have what's called round trip cruises. These are round trip from Seattle or San Francisco or LA, depending. We have the one-way cruises, which typically will go from Vancouver to Whittier, which is the Anchorage area, or Whittier to Vancouver. And then we have the cruise tours that cover both cruises and tours in Alaska. So first, we're going to talk about the cruise schedule. And looking at the map, this kind of shows you the difference between what's called the Inside Passage cruise and what we call the Gulf of Alaska. So we have ships that do both. We have ships that will do round trip Seattle. And if you notice a line that comes out, they come up out of Seattle, they come up the Inside Passage, Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, a glacier experience. Sometimes it's Glacier Bay, which we'll talk about in a second. Sometimes it's Endicott. Sometimes it's one of the other glaciers. Back to Victoria, and then back to Seattle. That's your standard Inside Passage schedule. All right. So we operate that sometimes out of San Francisco also on a 10 or a 12-day or 14-day itinerary. So on a standard Inside Passage, they kind of leave from Seattle or Vancouver, come up to a certain area, turn around and go back. Right. They're great. They're really good. They're easy. It's easy air down to Seattle. But to really understand the ultimate in Alaska, consider the one-way cruises. These are the ones that go from Vancouver to Whittier, which is our gateway to Anchorage, or Whittier to Vancouver. So frequently I'm asked, if I'm going to go to Alaska, what's the best way? Should I go northbound or should I go southbound? That's a tough question. You know, a lot of people like northbound because every day of your cruise, the mountains are getting bigger, glaciers are getting bigger, and you kind of got a wow factor. It's wow, 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 wow. But when you get off the ship in Alaska, it's 4 hours times difference between there and the East Coast. It's a long way away, and you're typically looking at an overnight flight. That's why I like, and what I suggest is that if you're east of the Mississippi, leave home, fly as far away as you got to go. That's the first day of your trip. So you're going to leave from the Northeast. You're going to fly as far away as you got to go. You're going to land in Alaska that day. You're going to be tired. You're going to be cranky, but you're there. Now you can start to relax. If you're taking just the cruise, you would overnight in Anchorage, relax a little bit. Remember, get 4 hours extra sleep. The next day, transfer down to Whittier and start your amazing cruise southbound. When you get off the ship in in Vancouver, you're only 8 hours from the East Coast. It's much easier. So you have flights that leave Vancouver 11:30ish and get on the East Coast 8:30ish. 9:30 or so on the Eastern time. So it just makes it easier flight-wise to leave East Coast, fly as far away as you're going to go, and slowly work your way back home. Now, that'll also be true when we talk about cruise tours. A cruise tour is when you add the land to the 7-day cruise. Okay? So we'll talk about that in just a second. Finishing up on the cruises, what makes Princess a little bit different than our competitors. We all know you want to see a glacier. You know, everybody wants to see a glacier. They want to experience a glacier, perhaps a calving, right? But not all glaciers are created equal. The place where we like to go is a place called Glacier Bay. And if you go up there to Juneau and basically turn left, you're going to see the sign there that says Glacier Bay National Park. Think of your hand as Glacier Bay. Little known thing about glaciers, the closer you get to that ice, the less oxygen there is in the water. There's no oxygen in that water, which means there's no life in that water. And that's really important to remember. So many glaciers that you go to in Alaska, there's no restrictions because there's no life there. So the government doesn't care. Anybody can go there. With Princess, we go to Glacier Bay on all ships that go north-south. So every ship that goes from Vancouver to Whittier or Whittier to Vancouver has a Glacier Bay permit. They only allow 2 a day. And every one of our ship has Glacier Bay on every itinerary. On the round trip Seattle's, one of our ships goes into Glacier and the other one goes someplace else. So we have a lot of permits into Glacier Bay. You have to have a permit. What makes Glacier Bay so different? Think of your hand as Glacier Bay. You come into the bay and everything that floats, flies, or swims eats in Glacier Bay. This is where mom brings her babies. This is why it's so protected. 65 miles of open water where you're going to have an abundance of wildlife. This is where they live. As you come back into the glacier area, you come back into a finger, and there at the finger is your first glacier that's, Marjorie, about 500 feet tall. Second glacier, about 500 feet tall. You sail by the third, and then you got to come back out that 65-mile bay. And that's what makes Glacier Bay so special. Only 2 ships a day are allowed in Glacier Bay. It's an incredible experience, an incredible way to spend the day. Imagine sitting on the privacy of your own balcony. Don't worry, we'll give you wool blankets to keep you warm. Or you can be like my wife and just take the cover off the bed. Sit out there, have room service brought to your cabin free of charge, and we'll bring you the wonder of Alaska to your feet. So those are your cruises. Inside Passage, and this is true on anybody, will originate either out of Seattle or Vancouver, go up to a certain section, and come back. Some will include Glacier Bay, most won't because of the restricted licensing. With Princess, every ship that goes from Vancouver to Whittier, which is our gateway to Anchorage, or Whittier down to Vancouver, has a Glacier Bay permit. So if you're looking for the ultimate Alaska cruise, I would have you fly into Anchorage a day early, at least a day early, relax, take the pressure off. You can't fly into Anchorage the day the ship is supposed to leave. If there's a flight delay or something, you're totally out of luck. So you go in a day early or 2 days early. There's a lot of things to do. You can even customize a little bit. If you want to, the morning you're supposed to board your ship, you can take an early morning either train or motor coach transfer down to Whittier. You can take a 5-hour cruise on something called Phillips Cruises. It goes back into Prince William Sound, College Fjord, where the orcas live and the whales live and the glaciers fall, places where the ships don't get to. It's an amazing experience. You get off that boat and right across the pier is your Princess ship. So there's all kind of things that you can do to really enjoy and maximize your time while you're in Alaska. When we talk about the one-way cruises, say here's a glacier. Closer you get to that ice, the less oxygen is in the water. All right, 7 days between Vancouver and Whittier, which is our gateway to Anchorage. Let's back up just a second and look at that map. So there's 2 deep sea ports in Alaska. Very important to understand. Whittier and Seward. So our competitors go into Seward. Seward's only 129 miles from Anchorage. We're 65 miles from Whittier. But what's the difference is Seward is down there where you see the P under Prince William Sound. That's about where Seward is, give or take a little, about an inch or two. All right. So it's a great port. It really is. It's a wonderful port. But 129 miles, and you have to come up over the Kenai Mountains and come around a corner to get to Anchorage. There's only one road in, one road out. So you can only go as fast as the motorhome in front of you, or the motorhome in front of them, or the motorhome in front of them. So that 129 miles can take you 5 hours to get up to Anchorage. With Princess, that's why we chose Whittier, because with Whittier, we're only 65 miles from Anchorage. It's a direct transfer. It takes about 90 minutes in motor coach, or you can take a train, or in a second, we'll talk about cruise tours. We have trains that literally leave from the pier and go direct to the mountains, bypassing everything. And that's why we chose Whittier. Okay. So back to the cruise picture here. 2 glacier viewing on every cruise. So every northbound and southbound cruise has 2 glaciers, not 1. Going north, you have Glacier Bay, Prince William Sound. Coming south, you have Hubbard Glacier, the largest glacier in Alaska, and Glacier Bay. So with Princess, you're going to get 2 glaciers on every 7-day cruise that goes one way. When we talk about cruise tours, the cruise tour is taking the land, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-day land, adding it to the cruise, makes a cruise tour. We have a bunch of different options, and I'll tell you honestly, a 4-day land and above is fine. Some people will take some of the 3-day lands. I don't recommend the 3-day land because it's just too hectic on the body. Your body doesn't get enough rest. If you do, what I would recommend, that would be to fly to Alaska, Anchorage or Fairbanks, depending on the tour. Do your running around on land, come down, relax on that cruise coming southbound, enjoy the glacier experience, and then fly home out of Vancouver, and you're 8 hours from the East Coast. It's just easier on the body to do a southbound. So that's my recommendation. All right, but cruise tours are just an incredible way to add the land to the cruise. Now, this picture was taken in Denali, as you can tell. All right. Believe it or not, we're about 65 miles from the base of Denali, just to kind of give you an idea. Denali, 20,000 or 20,310 feet. She's shrunk a little bit now. All right. Let's see. Moving down just a second. So, cruise tour, cruise, rail, and land. Okay, that's what a cruise tour. And the number one reason guests choose a cruise tour is to visit Denali National Park. Well, it's important to understand what Denali is. All right, Denali is massive. Mount McKinley is absolutely huge. Now, basically, she's just called Denali. She's shrunk a little bit, but she's still over 20,300 feet tall. So she's a beautiful thing to see. Well, the problem is, as the sun progresses, it gets warm up there. It can be very hot up there in the summertime. So you get a natural cloud layer around the mountain in the summertime, because if you see, the mountain never thaws. Let's go back to that picture a second ago. Please, let's take a look at that Princess Cruise Tour. See, the top of that mountain, Greta, it never thaws. It's always frozen. So if we're 80 degrees in the valley and that mountain is frozen, you have a lot of fog in the summertime. So that's the challenge with seeing Denali in the summertime, is because of all that heat. If this rock is the most important thing for you to experience, then you probably want to go in May and June when it's the driest time of the year. Best opportunity to see it. All right, so we have basically multiple properties that we own in Alaska, and Princess owns them. They're ours, so we have complete control over them. In Denali, at the Denali Park entrance, we have the Denali Princess Lodge. It's the largest lodge in Alaska. Copper River, which is out in God's country. All right. Mount McKinley, which is 65 miles from the base of the mountain. And then the Fairbanks Princess Lodge, which is the hardest to get. It's the most requested lodge that we have. And basically now it's so much requested, we've restricted to the 7-day tours in Fairbanks. There's not enough hotel rooms in Alaska, to cover all the requests. So let's go back and look at statistics. Remember, about 500,000 people, 550,000 people live in the whole state. Of that number, 3/4 of them live within 100 miles of Anchorage. So the rest are spread out over this whole vast area that we call Alaska. So in places like Fairbanks, we share space with our competitors. Princess works with Holland. We work with Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, NCL. We all kind of work together because there's just not enough hotel rooms in Fairbanks to accommodate the request. But we actually own our lodges. We're the only ones that do. We're the only company that owns all the lodges that we use in Alaska. So that is a benefit that we have. With our Direct to the Wilderness program, you literally could fly into Alaska, do your land tour first. 3, 4, 5, don't do the 3. Please don't do the 3. Do the 4, 5, 6, or 7 day. All right. A lot of choices there. That could be another show at another time, depending on where you want to go in Alaska. My favorite place in all of Alaska is Kenai. If you've ever read or listened to stories about Kenai, it's absolutely fantastic. It's one of the basic wildlife areas of Alaska. You come outside, our lodge is built up on a hill, and you walk out the back because you've got a covered patio back. Every room does. And you're looking at 270 degrees of mountains with Dall sheep and moose and elk, everything you can imagine on these mountains. Is just absolutely incredible. So fly into Alaska, do your land, and then you'll board our train, which will take you down your pier to start your 7-night southbound cruise. Now, the picture that you see there of that lady, she is actually our Alaska specialist. She's the one that her name is Kendra. She puts together all of our Alaska programs. She's great. She's based out of Seattle. So we kind of got her taking a picture of the mountain, and which was kind of cool. Picture was taken in the middle of summer, just to kind of give you an idea. Okay. So Denali's Big Five: moose, bear, fox, wolf, Dall sheep, and of course caribou. Dall sheep are interesting. They live on the side of the mountains, so they know they have to be careful and stay away from the bears. So they live on the side of the mountains where the bears can't run. It's just incredible. a lot of things to do. If you're in Denali National Park on our cruise tours, our tours include visits back into the park, either a 5-hour tour, an 8-hour tour, or you can send your in-laws on the 12-hour tour because they're all on a school bus. So it makes it for a pretty interesting day. But in and around Denali is a lot of things to do that'll get you up close and personal with the wildlife of Alaska. You look at some of the tours here that we offer: fishing, dog sledding up there, depending on the time of year, of course. Um, as the summer progresses, it gets harder and harder to find snow unless you take a helicopter to the top of a glacier. The middle portion there where you see the four wheels, I do this practically every summer that I'm up in Denali. There's a place right outside of our lodge called Black Diamond, and you can go there and rent the 4x4s. And it takes you out to the base of the national park. We've seen moose, we've seen all kinds of wildlife out there. We've seen bear, we've seen everything out there you can imagine. So it's just a really cool way to spend the day. Some of the shore excursions that you can do. Wait just a second here. When we talk about deals and what's available right now, for 2022, oh boy, 2022, right now we have what's called the Best Sale Ever going on. It includes free drinks and Wi-Fi and gratuities and specialty restaurants, upgrades. There's all kind of deals to be had out there. We also have some customized cruise tours, which we're trying to figure out how that's going to work, because some of the suppliers up there, we have been told for 2021, may not be there. So that's still a work in progress, but we will have a specialized custom cruise tour for Greta and everybody else here shortly for both 21 and for 22. If you've ever been in the military and you have a DD-214, Princess would like to say thank you for your service. It's important to understand. We get it. We understand. We offer an extra $100 on board credit. So what's different from our military program from others is if you served and you have a DD-214, we would like to say thank you for your service. And that $100 extra on board credit is in addition to all the other benefits and everything that we supply. So my last slide here is thank you. But Greta, if we could, I'd like to go back to the map just a second and let's talk about the personalities of the different locations in Alaska. This basically is covering the cruises, all right? So you look at the cities in Alaska, you've got Ketchikan, historic, a lot of history here. This is where you could see black bears during the summertime. Ketchikan sits in the middle of a rainforest. Guess what it's going to do? It's going to rain. But it'll open up opportunities to see huge black bears, salmon running up the rivers and the bears running after them. Rainforest, a lot of history here. This is where you'll learn the difference between the Raven clan and the Eagle clan. And for centuries, if you were a Raven, you could only date, marry an Eagle. And if you were Eagle, you could only date, marry a Raven. And you walk through town now, which is a beautiful walk. It's a very small city. You walk through town and you look over the doors, and on the doors is an eagle or a raven. Tells you the history of the clan of the house. It follows the wife, whatever the wife is the family takes. Juneau, state capital. Other than Hawaii, the only state capital not accessible by land. Juneau's an island. Juneau will provide you some excellent opportunities to see wildlife. One of the best cruise tours, or one of the best tours that you can do while you're on the cruise, is in Juneau, and it's called the Whale and Wildlife Cruise. It goes into an area called Auk Bay, A-U-K-E. You can Google it to get information. Auk Bay is God's feeding ground in Alaska. When you fly over Alaska in the summertime, you look down, the waters are dark blue because it's so deep. You fly over Auk Bay in the month of July and August, and the water's actually green. And the reason it's green is because it has one of the world's largest food blooms. And when all these little fish come into Auk Bay, all the predators come to Auk Bay to eat them. Whales, orcas, seals, sea lions. It becomes a smorgasbord for the wildlife. So the number one, what I recommend, the number one shore excursion to do is called the Whale and Wildlife Cruise there in Auk Bay. Take a helicopter to the top of a glacier. walk across ice that was created when Christ walked the earth over 2,000 years ago. It is quite the experience. Skagway, our last inside passage. Skagway, history of the gold rush. White Pass Railroad, the number one tourist attraction in all the inside passage in Alaska. It was finished in the late 1890s. It was finished after the gold rush, set dormant, now has become the most popular short cruise in all of Alaska. It's a really cool trip that goes up the side of the mountain. You cannot have a fear of heights and take this, but the views are absolutely spectacular. So in this short time, we could only kind of introduce you to the state, and it's important to understand there are many ways to see it. You have the round trip cruises from Seattle or Vancouver. You have the one-way cruises that go from Vancouver to the Anchorage area to Vancouver. East of the Mississippi, I really recommend southbound. Go as far away as you got to go. Slowly work your way back home. In addition to the 7-day cruise, which are all 7-day cruises that go between Anchorage and Vancouver on Princess, all cruises have 2 glaciers, not one, 2 glaciers, and one of those is always guaranteed Glacier Bay. And then when you want to add land to it, you can add land, get back into the land. Places like Denali, McKinley, my favorite, Kenai, Copper River, many places to go. So that's just kind of an introduction to the state. It's a massive amount of land with a minimum amount of footprint. And I want to leave you with a true story that happened about 10 years ago. So I had an opportunity to take a guide back into the outback areas of Alaska. We took a float plane out and we landed into an area we flew out of little airport outside of Anchorage. And we landed in an area where he said most people never go. And it was quite an experience. I'm a very large person. You can't see this with the picture, but let's just say you can kind of picture Big Bird, and that's me. So we landed into the Outback area and started walking around a little bit, and I left footprints in the mud. I went back the next year, and my footprints were the only footprints in 25 miles. Nobody else had been there. It was an incredible experience to understand the size and scale and the magic of Alaska. All right, Greg, would you like to open it up for any questions?
Yeah, that is a really, really cool story. I don't think there's anywhere else in the United States you could visit that you would be able to say that.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. We did have one quick question about whales, which at the very end there you talked about Auk Bay. Is there a specific time of year that's best to go for that, or is that's just a whenever?
They're there. They basically come in April and they don't leave until October, November. And even that's a little iffy right now because of some issues that are going on down in the Pacific Ocean where they normally transit through. But they're going to be there all summer. The biggest whale congregating areas are Auk Bay, in some cases Glacier Bay. Just north of Vancouver, if you're on a southbound cruise at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your last day of your cruise, as you're coming back into the inside passage from the straits, you're in another massive whale area. And it's interesting because how you spot whales in Alaska is not what you think. You can't tell looking in the distance whether it's a whale or a rock. There's a lot of rocks up there. So what you look for is the poof. I call it poof patrol. P-O-O-F, poof patrol. So when a whale breathes, this mist rises above the water, right? So that's how you tell it's a whale. So you go out and you look for the poof. As you come on your last day of your cruise coming into Vancouver, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's going to be another massive area for whales. So, but to get up close and personal, you can't beat that area of Auk Bay.
Very cool. All righty. I'm sorry, I'm just taking a second to check the feed here. I'm not seeing any additional questions. The whales were definitely the big thing. So yeah, I'm going to say good night for now then. Thank you so much for bringing such great information and great visuals. And I think I'm going to have a lot of folks excited to come visit Alaska.
All right, good. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody. Have a great year. Good luck to you. We'll see you in Alaska.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, folks. I'm so glad he came and talked about that because I think Alaska of anything is one of the destinations that I'm actually really getting a lot of interest in right now. So I'm hoping that those of you who are watching are even more excited about Alaska than you already were. I have a couple quick little housekeeping items to go over with y'all, and then I will let you go for the evening, especially running just a little over. We had some technical stuff going on at the beginning. So very, very quickly, I just want to let you know, next week's guest is my representative from American Cruise Lines. They do some of the rivers in America, and I think it'll be a really, really interesting one for you guys. The week after that, Luxury Gold will be joining us, and they do lounge tours, specifically luxury lounge tours. So limited numbers of folks, really, really nice hotels, the multi-star hotels, and some really, really unique individualized experiences. So I'm really excited to have you hear from them as well. The very first week of March, we will also be talking to Celebrity Cruise Lines, and they will be talking about their brand new ship in the Galapagos. So I'm so excited for the visuals with that one, because so beautiful. So folks, I'm going to real quick give you my travel tip for the week, and then I'm going to bounce. My tip for the week is to download Google Translate before you leave. It may not be perfect, we all know that, but if you don't speak the language in the destination that you're visiting, it will help you get around. So make sure that you hit that up before you leave. So folks, if you missed any parts of the show tonight, you can absolutely catch the replay right here at the Savvy Travel Design Facebook page. And if you need to reach me, if you have questions, or if you are interested in more information about, excuse me, Alaska cruises or cruises and tours, you can always reach me at greta@savvytraveldesign.com, or you can visit my website, www.savvytraveldesign.com. And if you're interested in getting my weekly email with some travel information and some tips and all that fun stuff, then you can also shoot me your email from the website as well. There's a little pop-up that'll let you put in your email, and then you'll be included in that as well. So folks, it was great to visit with you this evening, and I am Greta Smith with Savvy Travel Design. This is Fabulously Fun Trips, and I will sign off for the evening, wishing you love, light, and vacation daydreams. Ciao for now.